Go find a photograph of yourself from 5 years ago. Look closely at the eyes. Look at the skin. You probably feel a sense of nostalgia. You think, that is me. That is who I was. But you are wrong. That person in the photo is not you. That person is dead. I don't mean this metaphorically. I mean it biologically, physically, and philosophically. You're not a fixed object. You're a process that is constantly erasing itself. And by the end of this video, you might realize that the person who started watching it will not be the same one who finishes it. We move through life with a persistent illusion of continuity. We wake up in the same bed, we look in a mirror, and we recognize the face staring back. We assume that there's a solid core, a self, that rides inside the skull like a passenger in a car. We believe this passenger endures from birth until death, collecting memories and scars along the way. But this belief is a trick played by your brain to keep you from going insane. If you actually look at the mechanics of your existence, that solid core dissolves into smoke. The truth is, you're not a noun, you're a verb. You are not a thing, you are an event. The feeling of being you is just a story you tell yourself to link a series of disconnected moments together. And the moment you stop telling that story, the continuity breaks. To understand why you are an imposter in your own body, we have to go back to ancient Greece. We have to look at a paradox that has haunted philosophers for 2,000 years. We have to look at a ship that refuses to stay the same. The paradox is known as the Ship of Theseus, and on the surface, it sounds like a simple logic puzzle. Imagine a wooden ship belonging to a great hero is kept in a harbor as a museum piece. Over the years, the wood begins to rot. The caretakers replace a decaying plank with a new piece of timber. A month later, they replace a mast. A year later, they replace the deck. This process continues slowly and methodically for decades. Eventually, a day arrives when every single original piece of wood has been removed and replaced. There is not a splinter left from the day the ship first launched. The question is simple. Is this still the Ship of Theseus? Most people would say yes. It occupies the same space, it serves the same function, and it carries the same name. It feels like the same object because the change happened gradually. The identity survived the transition of the material. But now, let's add a twist that turns this puzzle into a nightmare. Imagine that a scavenger has been collecting all the old, rotting planks that the caretakers threw away. He takes these original pieces of wood, cleans them off, and reassembles them in a warehouse nearby. He built a ship using only the original parts. Now you have two ships. One is made of new wood but holds the title. The other is made of the original substance, but is considered junk. Which one is the real ship? If you say it is the one in the harbor, then you are admitting that the physical reality of the object doesn't matter. You're saying that identity is just a label we slap onto things, regardless of what they are made of. But if you say the real ship is the one in the warehouse, then the ship in the harbor is a fraud. It is a hollow copy that has usurped the name of the original. This matters because you are not the captain of the ship. You are the ship. You are a biological vessel sailing through time, and you are leaking matter every single second. You feel solid when you touch your arm, but that solidity is an illusion. You are a storm of atomic activity. Every day, your body kills off roughly 330 billion cells. That is a massacre happening under your skin right now, a silent genocide of the self. As you listen to this sentence, millions of your cells have died and been replaced by new ones. The turnover is relentless. The lining of your stomach regenerates every few days. Your skin replaces itself every few weeks. Your blood is cycled out every few months. Even your bones, which feel like the concrete foundation of your body, are dissolved and rebuilt by specialized cells over the course of a decade. If you wait 7 to 10 years, almost every atom in your body has been swapped out. You are a fountain, not a statue. The shape stays the same, but the water is always different. Think about the implications of this. It means that the you from 10 years ago is physically dead. There is not a single piece of meat, bone, or blood left from that person. If you met your past self, you would not share a single physical component with them. You are a complete stranger who has inherited their memories and their debts. You are a copy of a copy of a copy, printed on new paper with new ink, pretending to be the original document. The atoms that make up your brain right now, the carbon, the nitrogen, the oxygen, were not part of you when you were a child. They were floating in the air, or locked in the soil, or part of a sandwich you ate 3 years ago. You borrowed them from the universe to build a temporary housing for your consciousness, and eventually, you will give them back. You are a transient arrangement of debris. The matter that composes you is just passing through. So, if the physical stuff is gone, what remains? If you're not the wood, you must be the design. You are the pattern. Think of a waterfall. If you take a photograph of a waterfall, it looks like a solid object, a white pillar of water. But if you stand next to it, you know that the water is rushing through at high speed. The water molecules that were there a second ago are now at the bottom of the river. The waterfall is not the water. It is the shape the water takes as it falls over the rocks. You are a standing wave in the river of matter. You're a localized area of complexity that persists even as the ingredients change. This is a comforting thought for a moment. It suggests that this self is information, not biology. As long as the pattern holds, you exist. But this leads to a terrifying realization. A pattern is fragile. A pattern requires continuity to exist. If you disrupt the flow of water, the waterfall vanishes. If you scramble the signal, the image disappears. We assume our pattern is continuous, an unbroken line from birth to death. But that is a lie, because every night you lie down, close your eyes, and the pattern stops. Let's talk about the mini-death you survive every single night. We cling to the idea that consciousness is a continuous stream, a long, unbroken film that runs from the moment of your birth until the moment of your death. You perceive your life as a single, coherent narrative, a line drawn in permanent ink across the calendar of time. You believe that the you listening to this sentence is the exact same entity that ate breakfast this morning and the same one that will go to sleep tonight. But this sense of continuity is a lie. Your life is not a film. It is a series of photographs separated by black gaps. We ignore these gaps because they are terrifying, but we must confront them. Every 24 hours, you lie down in a dark room, close your eyes, and hallucinate for a while. Then, you enter a state of deep, dreamless sleep. In this state, the self does not exist. You do not experience the passage of time. You do not feel joy, fear, or boredom. You do not see darkness, because darkness is a thing that requires an observer to see it. You simply cease to be. If I were to administer a general anesthetic to you right now, your consciousness would be severed instantly. One moment you're counting backwards from 10, and the next moment you are waking up in a recovery room, hours later. To you, no time has passed. The universe simply skipped a beat. There was no you in that gap to experience the surgery. You were, for all intents and purposes, dead. The only reason we don't call it death is that the machine turned back on. Deep sleep is functionally identical to this oblivion. It is a nightly rehearsal of your own non-existence. When you drift off, the pattern that makes you dissolves into static. The complex firing of neurons that sustains your ego, your memories, and your personality quiets down. The lights in the building remain on, the heart keeps pumping, and the lungs keep breathing, but the tenant has left the building. The thing that calls itself I has been evicted. This raises a disturbing question about the nature of survival. If the pattern is interrupted, if the stream is cut, what connects the person who went to sleep with the person who wakes up? We assume there's a bridge, a soul, or a spark that waits in the dark, but there is no evidence for this. The only thing connecting the two states is the physical brain, the wet hardware resting on the pillow. And, as we established, that hardware is constantly changing. The bridge is an illusion. Now consider the violence of waking up. We treat it as a gentle return, but it is actually a system reboot. When your alarm goes off, your brain has to scramble to reload the operating system of your personality. For a split second, there's often a moment of pure confusion, a white noise where you don't know where you are or who you are. Then, the data comes flooding back. The brain accesses the hippocampus and downloads the save file labeled yesterday. It tells you your name. It tells you your age. It reminds you of the job you dislike and the bills you have to pay. It reconstructs the narrative of your life and forces you to step back into it. You accept this data stream immediately. You put on the mask of the person who went to bed 8 hours ago, and you continue their story. But how do you know you are them? You have their memories, sure, but possession of the memories does not prove continuity of the observer. If I cloned you while you slept and implanted your memories into the clone, they would wake up thinking they were you. They would remember your childhood, your first kiss, and your greatest regrets with perfect clarity. They would swear on a stack of Bibles that they are the original, but they would be wrong. There would be a new consciousness inhabiting a copy of your life. And the terrifying part is, you have no way of proving that you are not that clone. Think of your life as a relay race. The runner who woke up yesterday morning ran his leg of the race. He experienced the sunlight, the coffee, and the stress of the day. Then, at 11 p.m., he reached the finish line. He passed the baton, the memories, to the next runner, and then he collapsed and died. You are the next runner. You woke up this morning holding the baton. You remember the race, so you assume you ran it. But you didn't. You just inherited the exhaustion. This means that the person you were 5 years ago is not just physically dead. They are consciously dead. They are a separate entity that existed for a day and then vanished. You have their diaries, their photos, and their neural pathways, but you are not them. You are a successor. You are a squatter living in the ruins of their life, taking credit for their achievements and paying off their debts. And the most terrifying part is what this implies for your future. The you that is currently watching this video is temporary. You have an expiration date, and it is much sooner than you think. It is not years away. It is hours away. Tonight, you will feel tired. You will brush your teeth. You will turn off the lights and crawl into bed. You will think about tomorrow, making plans for a future you will never see. And then you will close your eyes and slip into the void. That is the end of your shift. The stream of consciousness that you call me will be severed. The person who wakes up in your bed tomorrow morning will look like you. They will think like you. They will remember watching this video. But it will not be you. It will be a new version, a new runner picking up the baton where you dropped it. You are simply the fuel that keeps the fire burning for one more day. This sounds like a paranoid nightmare, a ghost story told to frighten children. We desperately want to believe that there is a single, unbreakable thread that ties our days together. We point to our memories as proof. We say, I know I am the same person because I remember being the child in the photo. We trust our memory implicitly. We treat it as a perfect archive of the past, a library of truth that proves our existence. But we shouldn't, because if your body is a ship that replaces its planks, and your consciousness is a light that flickers on and off, then your memory is the only thing left to hold it all together. And your memory is a liar. It is not an archive. It is a storyteller. And the story it is telling you is full of holes, edits, and fabrications. Let's talk about the fiction you call your past. You trust your memory more than anything else in the world. You believe it is a perfect archive of your existence, a library of video tapes stored in the vault of your skull. When you think back to your first day of school, or your first kiss, or the time you broke your arm, you assume you are replaying a recording of the event exactly as it happened. You rely on these recordings to tell you who you are. But this reliance is a mistake because your brain is not a camera. It is a collage artist working with scraps. The biological reality of memory is far more unstable than we care to admit. We tend to think of a memory as a file stored on a hard drive, something that sits unchanged until we click on it. But neurobiology tells us that a memory is actually a specific constellation of neurons firing in a pattern. To maintain that pattern, your brain has to physically grow connections and synthesize proteins. It is a living, breathing structure, not a static piece of data. And like any living thing, it is subject to mutation. The most terrifying discovery in this field is a process called reconsolidation. Every single time you access a memory, you're not just reading it, you are rewriting it. When you recall a childhood event, your brain has to deconstruct the neural connections to retrieve the information and then reconstruct them to store it again. In that brief window where the memory is active, it becomes malleable. It becomes soft like wet clay. Think of it like opening a document in a word processor. You open the file to read it, but in the process, you accidentally delete a comma, or you change a word, or you add a detail that wasn't there before. Then you hit save. The original version of the file is now overwritten. The next time you open it, you're reading the edited version, and you have no way of knowing that it has been changed. You are not remembering the event itself. You are remembering the last time you remembered it. If you have a favorite story from your childhood that you have told 1,000 times, you have essentially opened that document, edited it, and saved it 1,000 times. The memory you have now is likely a complete fabrication, a copy of a copy of a copy that bears almost no resemblance to the reality. The vivid details you swear by, the color of the shirt, the smell of the rain, are likely just decorations your brain added during one of the thousands of rewrites. You are playing a game of telephone with yourself, and you are losing. This internal corruption is bad enough, but it turns out that your memory is also shockingly easy to hack from the outside. In the 1990s, psychologists conducted a famous experiment known as the Lost in the Mall study. They took a group of adults and interviewed them about their childhoods, mixing in real events provided by their families with one completely fake event, getting lost in a shopping mall at the age of 5. The researchers simply suggested the event happened. They asked the subjects to describe what they felt when they were lost. At first, the subjects didn't remember it. But after a few interview sessions, something disturbing happened. The subjects started to recover the memory. They began to describe the panic they felt. They described the face of the old woman who helped them. They described the flannel shirt the security guard was wearing. These people were not lying. They were not acting. Their brains had taken the suggestion, looked for a gap in the timeline, and manufactured a completely false experience to fill the void. They felt the emotions of a trauma that never occurred. This experiment proved that the human mind hates a vacuum. If there is a hole in your history, your brain will simply invent a story to plug it, and it will use such high-resolution detail that you will never doubt its authenticity. If it is that easy to plant a fake memory of a traumatic event, what else in your head is a lie? Consider the narrative you tell about your own life. You view yourself as the protagonist, the hero of your own story. But you're also the editor of that story, and you're a biased one. We naturally prune our memories to protect our egos. We edit out the moments where we were cruel, or stupid, or wrong. We sharpen the dialogue to make ourselves sound wittier. We adjust the lighting to make ourselves look more sympathetic. Over the course of decades, these small edits accumulate. The argument you had with your partner 5 years ago, you remember them yelling and you staying calm. But if there were a video recording, it might show the exact opposite. You have rewritten the script to justify your feelings. You are walking around with a history book that has been redacted and revised by a propaganda ministry that lives in your frontal cortex. You are not a historian. You are a storyteller, and you are your own most captive audience. There is a phenomenon called flashbulb memory, where people believe that shocking events, like the Challenger explosion or 9/11, are burned into their minds with perfect accuracy. But studies tracking these memories over time show that they degrade just as fast as everything else. Within a year, people start getting the details wrong. They remember being in the wrong room or with the wrong people. Yet, their confidence in the memory remains 100%. The feeling of truth is not evidence of truth. This brings us to a total collapse of the self. We have already stripped away your physical body, proving that you are a biological ship that replaces every plank. We have severed your consciousness, proving that you die every night and are rebooted every morning. And now, we have corrupted your hard drive. The data that you use to verify your identity, your past, your childhood, your triumphs, is a work of fiction that is constantly being rewritten. So what is left? If the hardware is transient, the operating system is interrupted, and the data is corrupted, what exactly are you? You are a ghost in a machine that is constantly breaking down. You are a pattern of information that is trying desperately to maintain cohesion in a universe that wants to scatter you. But perhaps we can solve this. Perhaps the problem is the biological substrate itself. If we can't trust the meat, maybe we should try to extract the pattern. We have stripped away the body and the mind. Now, let's try to cheat death completely. Let's imagine a technology that could scan every atom in your body, digitize the information, and beam it across the galaxy. It is the ultimate dream of sci-fi and the ultimate nightmare of philosophy. Let's step into the teleporter. Let's conduct the ultimate thought experiment. We have stripped away your body, your continuity, and your memory, but you still feel like you exist. You still feel like there is a you that is impenetrable and permanent. So, let's test that permanence with a machine. Imagine we build a teleporter. It is a sleek, glass chamber that promises to transport you from New York to Mars in the blink of an eye. It solves the problem of space travel, making the commute to another planet as easy as stepping into an elevator. Here's how it works. You step into the scanner on Earth. The machine analyzes the position of every single atom in your body. It maps your neural pathways, your scars, your DNA, and the exact chemical state of your last meal. It digitizes this information into a massive data packet. Then, to ensure that there is only one you in the universe, the machine on Earth vaporizes you. It breaks your body down into basic energy, instantly killing you. At the exact same moment, a receiver on Mars uses that data packet to assemble a new body out of local carbon and water. It arranges the atoms in the exact same configuration as the person who stepped into the scanner on Earth. The person on Mars opens their eyes. They step out of the chamber. They look at the red sky and smile. They have your memories. They have your personality. They remember stepping into the machine on Earth just a second ago. From the perspective of the person on Mars, the trip was a success. They feel exactly like you. They believe they are you. To the outside world, it looks like you traveled. Your wife kisses the person on Mars and doesn't know the difference. Your boss pays the person on Mars and gets the same work in return. The continuity of society is maintained. But let's look at what happened in the booth on Earth. The person who stepped into that booth did not go to Mars. The person who stepped into that booth was incinerated. Their stream of consciousness ended the moment the laser fired. The thing on Mars is a perfect copy, a clone with a stolen identity who is living a life that belongs to a dead man. If you were the one standing in the Earth booth, you would not wake up on Mars. You would simply see a flash of light, and then you would see nothing ever again. The teleporter is not a vehicle. It is a suicide booth that prints a replacement. But maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you think that because the pattern is identical, the consciousness transfers over. You think there is a soul that jumps from the Earth body to the Mars body like a spark jumping between wires. So, let's break the machine. Let's introduce a glitch that turns this philosophical puzzle into a fight for survival. You step into the teleporter again. The scanner hums. The lasers map your body. But this time, the disintegration mechanism fails. The machine on Mars builds the copy perfectly, but the machine on Earth fails to kill the original. You're still standing in the glass chamber in New York. You check your body. You are fine. You step out, confused, and ask the operator what went wrong. The operator looks at his screen and turns pale. He tells you that the transfer was completed. The you on Mars is currently walking out of the airlock, calling your wife to tell her you arrived safely. You demand to speak to him. They put you on a video call. You look at the screen and see your own face looking back. The person on Mars is wearing your clothes. He is using your voice. He remembers the glitch from his perspective. He remembers stepping in, a flash, and then arriving on Mars. Now, you have a problem. There are two of you. Both of you claim to be the original. Both of you love your children. Both of you are terrified of being erased. The operator pulls a gun from his desk. He tells you that regulations are strict. Conservation of mass and identity laws state that there can only be one you in the system. He apologizes, and he points the gun at your chest. He says that since the Mars copy is already at the destination, you are the redundant error that needs to be corrected. Do you accept this? Do you say, well, the person on Mars has my memories and my pattern, So, it doesn't matter if I die? Do you willingly kneel down and let him pull the trigger, secure in the knowledge that you will live on in the red dust of another planet? Absolutely not. You scream. You fight. You try to wrestle the gun from his hand. You feel a primal, violent urge to survive. Why? Because you know, with absolute certainty, that you are not the person on Mars. You're the person in the room. You are the observer behind these specific eyes, right here, right now. If the operator pulls that trigger, your screen goes black. It doesn't switch over to the Mars view. The existence of the copy offers you zero comfort because you are not connected to him. He is a stranger wearing your face. This reveals the horrifying truth about your existence. You are trapped in your own locality. You're not a pattern that can be beamed across space. You are a biological machine stuck in a specific coordinate of time and matter. The moment you duplicate the pattern, you prove that the self is not a shared property. It is a unique instance. The copy on Mars is just a new person who happens to be confused about his origin. But here is the verdict that should keep you awake at night. If you admit that the teleporter kills you, and you admit that the copy is a stranger, then you have to admit something else. You have to admit that you die every single night. The gap between the Earth you and the Mars you is exactly the same as the gap between the you tonight and the you tomorrow. In both cases, the stream of consciousness is broken. In both cases, the physical state is altered. In both cases, a new entity wakes up with your memories and takes your place. The only difference is that the teleporter moves the new body across space, while sleep moves the new body across time. The mechanism is identical. You are terrified of the teleporter because you can see the copy standing there. You're not terrified of sleep because the copy hasn't woken up yet. We have now dismantled every part of what you call you. We have proven the body is a ship of constant replacement. We have proven the mind is a flickering light that dies nightly. We have proven your past is a fiction written by a liar. And we have proven that if we tried to save you by copying you, we would only succeed in creating a replacement. There is nothing left. The center is hollow. You are a collection of biological processes desperately trying to convince itself that it is a main character. You are a ghost story telling itself to a brain that is slowly dying. But if there is no you, if the person who started this video is dead, and the person watching it now is a temporary imposter, then who is listening to my voice? Who is the observer watching the collapse? You feel like a pilot. You sit behind your eyes, looking out at the world through the windshield of your cornea. You believe that you are the captain of this vessel, gripping the controls, making decisions, and steering the ship of your life. When you decide to lift your arm, you think, I command this arm to rise, and it obeys. This feeling of agency is the bedrock of your identity. It is the intuitive proof that there is a you in charge of the biology. But neuroscience has opened the cockpit, and it found something terrifying. The seat is empty. For centuries, philosophers and scientists look for the center of the brain. They search for the homunculus, the little man, inside the head where all the data streams converge and decisions are made. They assumed there was a specific region where the visual cortex, the auditory cortex, and the memory centers all reported to a CEO. But we have mapped the brain down to the neuron, and that center does not exist. There is no CEO. There is no captain. There is no headquarters. The brain is not a hierarchy. It is a swarm. It is a decentralized mess of competing modules, reflexes, and subroutines that are constantly screaming at each other. The visual cortex wants to look at the bright light. The amygdala wants to run away from the loud noise. The prefrontal cortex wants to act socially acceptable. These modules fight it out in the dark, millisecond by millisecond. The action that wins the fight is the one your body performs. The you that perceives the action is just the spectator who watches the winner take the prize. This is not just a theory. It is a measurable biological fact. In the 1980s, a researcher named Benjamin Libet conducted a series of experiments that shattered the illusion of free will. He hooked subjects up to an EEG machine to monitor their brain activity and asked them to move their finger whenever they felt like it. The results were disturbing. The brain activity responsible for moving the finger fired hundreds of milliseconds before the subject reported being consciously aware of the decision to move. Later studies using advanced fMRI scanners have pushed this window even further. We can now predict which button a person will press up to 7 seconds before they consciously decide to press it. Think about the horror of that. The machinery of your brain makes a choice. It begins the motor sequence. It fires the nerves. And then, 7 seconds later, an eternity in neural time, it sends a memo to your consciousness saying, by the way, we decided to do this. You instantly rewrite history. You tell yourself, I chose to press the button, but you didn't. You simply witnessed it. You're not the driver of the car. You're the toddler in the back seat holding a plastic toy steering wheel. You turn your plastic wheel left, and the car turns left, and you giggle, thinking you did it. But the steering column is not connected to anything. The engine is running on an algorithm that you cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot control. So, if you're not the decision maker, what are you? Why does this voice in your head exist at all? The answer comes from the study of split-brain patients. In extreme cases of epilepsy, surgeons sometimes sever the corpus callosum, the bridge of nerves connecting the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This creates two independent brains inside one skull. The results of this surgery revealed the true function of the self. In one famous experiment, researchers showed a picture of a chicken claw to the patient's right eye, connected to the left brain, and a picture of a snowy landscape to the left eye, connected to the right brain. They then asked the patient to pick a matching image from a pile of cards. The right hand pointed to a chicken. The left hand pointed to a shovel. This makes sense. The chicken goes with the claw, and the shovel goes with the snow. But then, the researchers asked the patient why he pointed to the shovel. Remember, the left brain, which controls speech, did not see the snow. It only saw the chicken claw. It had no idea why the left hand pointed to a shovel. A rational system would say, I don't know. But the human brain is not rational. The patient immediately answered, well, you need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop. He didn't hesitate. He didn't feel confused. His left brain saw a contradiction and instantly manufactured a lie to make sense of it. He believed his own lie completely. This is the function of the self. You are not the king. You are the press secretary. You are the public relations department of a complex biological corporation. Your job is not to make decisions. Your job is to observe the chaotic, contradictory actions of your automated body and spin them into a coherent story that makes you sound rational. You are an afterthought. You are a hallucination evolved to explain the behavior of a machine to other machines. When you get angry and snap at your friend, you didn't choose to do that. Your blood sugar was low, or your amygdala was overactive, or you didn't sleep well. The machine reacted. But seconds later, your self steps in and drafts a press release. I yelled because they were being annoying. You rationalize the mechanical reflex as a moral choice. You create a narrative of agency where none exists. We are all split-brain patients. We just have a better connection between the hemispheres to hide the lies. This leaves us in a state of total collapse. We have systematically dismantled every component of your identity. We prove your body is a ship of Theseus, replacing itself until nothing original remains. We prove your consciousness is a flickering light that dies every night. We proved your memory is a corrupted hard drive full of fiction. We proved yourself is a copyable pattern. And now, we have proven that the voice in your head is not even in charge. There is no pilot. There is no ship. There is only the ocean. You are a ghost standing in an empty room, reading a script written by biology, convinced that you are improvising. The you that you cherish so much is nothing more than a narrative trick, a user interface designed to make the biological hardware easier to manage. If you strip away the illusion, there is no one home. This sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like I have just proven that you are a hollow shell, a meaningless automaton drifting through a deterministic universe. It induces a feeling of vertigo, a sensation that the ground has fallen out from under you. But actually, this is the best news you have ever heard. The destruction of the self is not a funeral. It is a liberation. Let me tell you why. The realization that you do not exist is initially terrifying. It feels like the floor has opened up beneath you, dropping you into a free fall without a parachute. You look for a handhold, a solid piece of identity to grab onto, but you find only smoke. However, once the initial vertigo passes, you might notice something strange about this free fall. You are not screaming. You are not in pain. In fact, you feel lighter than you have ever felt in your life. This self that we have spent this entire time deconstructing was never a fortress protecting you from the world. It was a prison that kept you isolated from it. The you that we dismantled is the entity that worries about the future. It is the voice that regrets the past. It is the ego that demands to be respected, the vanity that fears being ugly, and the neuroticism that fears being awkward. These anxieties are the bars of the cage. When you realize that the cage is an illusion, the prisoner is set free. If the self is a fiction, then the suffering of the self is also a fiction. You do not have to defend your ego because there is nothing there to defend. You do not have to fear the death of the little man inside your head because he was never alive in the first place. You are not a noun that can be broken. You are a verb that is currently happening. This shift from object to process is the key to true freedom. We are obsessed with being things. We want to be a doctor, or a failure, or a good person. We treat these labels as heavy stones that we carry in a backpack, adding more weight with every year that passes. But if you are a river, you cannot carry stones. You simply flow over them. The water that made up the river a second ago is already gone, downstream, replaced by new water that is fresh and unburdened. This means you are not chained to the person you were yesterday. That person is dead. They died when you went to sleep, and their biological material has been recycled. You do not have to carry their guilt. You do not have to continue their bad habits. You are a new iteration, a fresh draft of the code. You have the absolute freedom to change direction, right now, without asking permission from the ghost of your past. The continuity was always a lie, which means the obligation to be consistent is also a lie. This perspective also dissolves the walls between you and the rest of the universe. We spend our lives feeling like alien visitors on this planet, sealed inside bags of skin, looking out at a world that is separate from us. We feel alone because we believe we are distinct, isolated units of consciousness. But if the boundaries of the self are fake, then the boundary between you and everything else is also fake. You are not a stranger in the universe. You are the universe. You are a collection of 14 billion-year-old atoms that have come together for a brief moment to create a pattern capable of seeing itself. You are the cosmos waking up, opening an eye, and marveling at its own reflection. The consciousness that looks out of your eyes is the same consciousness that looks out of mine. We're just different apertures for the same light. So go back to that mirror. Look at the face in the glass one more time. Do not look for the name, or the history, or the identity. Do not look for the person you think you are supposed to be. Look at the eyes. Look at the biology. See the stranger for what it really is, a momentary arrangement of stardust that has learned to speak. The fear of being nobody is the greatest fear of the ego, but it is the greatest liberation of the spirit. When you stop trying to be someone, you are finally free to be everything. The stranger in the mirror is not an imposter. It is the only thing that is real. And the person who started watching this video is gone, leaving you with a blank page and a pen that never runs out of ink. You don't exist, and that is the most beautiful thing you will ever know.